All right. You know what's next, my friend.
30-second hot seat. So just come at me, bro. Come on.
All right, John. You know what? I have been juggling possibilities in my mind for a while now. And I am not happy with the way that the WWE debuted Sting. I feel like it was a complete waste of a huge moment. And the WWE always says, oh, we create moments here. But they completely missed out on an opportunity to create that moment because they wasted his big first appearance on WWE television for a frickin' video game. So your 30-second hot seat, John, how would you book Sting's debut in the WWE in 2014? You have 30 seconds. Your time starts now.
His debut on WWE TV. Honestly, to give another guy some kind of a nice rub, I guess, even though he wants to work with The Undertaker, and I think every appearance by Sting should be important. If I was really being honest, I would do exactly what I said on our Raw Twit. Well, have Sandow come out impersonating Sting, garner all that heat, have the lights go out, have Sting lay him out with the baseball bat, don't even bother wasting your time with a Scorpion Death Drop, and just stand silent among the fans, have the lights go out again, come back on, he's disappeared. But you know Sting is officially with WWE, and he's here to take care of business. So
I like that. I like that. To me, just about anything would be more creative than what the WWE did. And, like, we've had this conversation before. My mom is the biggest Sting mark I have ever known in my entire life. And she barely moved when that frickin' commercial was on. Like, she saw him and she was like, oh, that's cool. She's the biggest Sting fan I know, and the WWE managed to make her not care about him because they debuted him as a freaking video game character like they did with the freaking Ultimate Warrior last year.
right. I found it fascinating when there would be like videos circulating of Sting, and he dropped that teaser of like a certain date that he may arrive or something, and your mom got so excited because I never knew she was that level of Sting mark.
Just to kind of clarify for some people that don't understand the gravity of how much of a Sting mark my mom is, when he first said, I think it was 31, when they just a random, I think it was like a Vine or an Instagram video came out, and he was in front of a crowd, and all he said was that his favorite number was 31. She broke down and cried, for God's sakes, because she is so freaking excited at the prospect of him having a match at WrestleMania 31. And yet, they actually show his face on WWE television, and just the way they presented it just leads to apathy.
Exactly. Ashton, to me, I knew what I think the worst part. First of all, it's lazy on WWE's part. You have freaking Sting in your possession, and here's the thing. I don't care how old Sting is. It's freaking Sting. People have been talking about him going to WWE ever since the moment WCW dissolved.
And John, let me just throw this out there because I feel like this is a really, really relevant thing to say.
Yeah.
How long has The Undertaker been working as light of a schedule as he is now known to work, where it's like just the one night a year, sometimes even he'll do like a month worth of work, but usually it's only one night a year?
Oh, that's been for several years now.
How long would you say, though? About how many years?
Oh, God, dude, I don't want to lie. I'd say, would you say 6 or 5 or 6 years?
I would say 6 is probably a good estimation. Sting has been working a light set schedule since 1996.
Wow.
18 years he's been working. And now I'm not saying he's on Undertaker levels of light schedule. He's not a one night a year kind of worker, but he's been basically the Lesnar schedule where he'll show up, have maybe 2 to 3 matches a year, but everything else that he does is more just kind of selling tickets and making fans want to see him wrestle. He's been doing that since 1996, 18 years at this point. And he takes extremely good care of himself. If he can get into presentable in-ring shape to the point that he can get away with just wearing a singlet and not needing to wear a shirt to wrestle, he still has probably a solid 2 to 3 years left of 1, maybe 2 matches a year that he can make the WWE just so much money. I mean, Sting scene is inevitable, so I'm not even going to try and beat around that bush, but Sting Wyatt, Sting Taker still needs to happen. Sting Ambrose, Sting Reigns, John. Are you kidding me?
Ashton, here's the thing, bro. I am not contending anything you're laying down. In fact, the wrestling fan in me just wants to grab everything you said and make it happen. Or better yet, find somebody who does make it happen, dig deep into my pockets, and tell them shut up and take my money. Because I want all that. But in interviews I've read with Sting, he personally says he's got one match left in him, and it's The Undertaker. He wants The Undertaker.
Where did you hear that?
He said it in multiple interviews. Let me, if you want to continue the conversation so I could pull them up and show you, I'll be one moment.
Well, I mean, all I really have to say here is Sting, if Sting thinks that the only match he has left in him is with The Undertaker, I think that's a waste. But on that same note, it's going to sell a buttload of tickets. So, I mean, obviously, if that's the way he feels, you're not going to pass that opportunity up. So, yeah, that's definitely a great option. I just think, like, just thinking about the idea of Sting versus any of the guys that I mentioned, whether it's Wyatt, Reigns, Ambrose, like, just the prospect of that being possible now that he is with the company gives me goosebumps.
He made two comments. The first one was to TMZ, and he said, quote, he wants a deal in place so that I guess him facing Taker in a match people have been waiting for to happen for years. I guess that would be a clause in his contract that he is guaranteed a match with The Undertaker. And then he said, quote, he said, at my age, it's now or never. The wave is coming into the shore. And then he also says at the end of an interview with a piece called The Grantland, he said...
oh, I love Grantland. They're awesome. Have you ever heard of the Cheap Heat podcast?
No, I have not.
Well, how about a cheap plug for Cheap Heat? That's a podcast that Twitwell approves of.
Nice. Very nice. And then the question was at the end, how much more in-ring action do you have in you? And he says, quote, one more match, that's what I'm hoping to do, and I'd like it to be Taker, and then I'll hang it up. I mean, dude, this is a match that I don't want to speak for you, but speaking for myself, and I'm hopefully speaking for most guys, that when you're making fantasy matchups, like your top 10 or even top 20, really being generous, Sting Taker would have to be on there.
Yeah,
I think people just look at these two guys and, yeah.
To me, the number one fantasy match of all time is Austin Hogan, and that never happened. And then number two would probably be Hogan Rock, and that happened, and that was great, and that's arguably one of the most, if not the most, iconic WrestleMania moments of all time. But then at number 3 and 4 are two matches that have never happened. Austin versus Goldberg and Undertaker versus Sting.
Yeah. I mean, so the fact that they make your top 5, I mean, that alone tells you the significance of this matchup, and so many Sting fans.
God, I wish Goldberg would come back. I'm sorry, I just had to get that little Mark moment.
I understand, dude. I wish he would too, because again, like these matches.
But I don't think people realize Goldberg was what got me into into being a wrestling fan. He was like, and I was just a little mark at the time, so I'm completely biased and subjective on the subject, but Goldberg is the reason that I am a wrestling fan today. And it's because he was like this awesome superhero when I was 8 years old watching friggin' Nitro, and Chris Jericho kept on calling him out, and he never came out. And then the one time I finally got to see him, it had gotten to the point that I was at this huge buildup because it was like this mystical creature that I'd never seen before. And holy crap, there he is, and he gets to kill somebody. And it was just like, that's it. I'm sold. I'm a wrestling fan.
That was a great angle, and you know what? You can thank Jericho for that, because if Bischoff had his way, Jericho would have been just another number. But then Jericho said, no, why don't we really make this something different, make it special? And then when Goldberg finally spears Jericho, Jericho flies out of his boots, and the crowd loved it. Like, it was a great moment. And Goldberg, he's another one. He is a phenomenon, and I think you have said on Twitter, you've certainly expressed to me personally, that Goldberg was the one to get you into wrestling. So yeah, I totally understand that. And shifting the focus back to Sting, while I would love for him to interact with those talents that you mentioned, Bray, Ambrose, Reigns, Cena, simply because Cena, Sting, the marquee, and the video packages and everything, my God, the money that would make. Even the smaller guys, like I mentioned Damien Sandow, well, you know what? It's really, you can keep Damien Sandow at that joke status, because Lord knows you're never going to take him seriously, if not again, for quite a few years, I'm guessing at this point. I'm really thinking he's been 3M'd, where we're going to be in for a long ride. But you could have had him impersonate Sting, Lights go out, lights come back on, takes Sandow out of the bat, doesn't even really get physical with him, has a weapon, do all the talking.
Yep.
Lights go out again, lights come on, and he's gone, saying that I am not going to have anybody, not even a piece of 2-bit, lower mid-card trash like yourself, tarnish my legacy.
And here's the thing, dude. If he was to do that, nobody would have the right to say, oh my God, they buried Sandow. They let a 50-year-old beat up Sandow. Because I don't care if it's a 60-year-old. If he's wielding a bat and knows where you are in the dark and you don't know where he is in the dark, you're going to get beat up.
Exactly. And people could invoke like the 50-year-old argument, this and that. We're talking Damian Sandow, who really hasn't even done anything, and the most prominent thing was Money in the Bank, which his cash in failed, against freaking Sting here. I mean, to me, if I was Sandow at that point, I would consider it an honor to have that kind of interaction with Sting at this point. So, yeah, I would take it.
I mean, dude, Heath Slater has gotten beat up for significantly less star power than Sting.
Exactly. And he said he loved it. That was one of his favorite things to do in the company, was working with all those legends. I mean, that's the wrestler mentality. In fact, I even read a report that
really, if Heath Slater's willing to get beat up by Lita and the APA, I think Sandow would be more than happy to get beat up by freaking Sting.
And that's just it, dude. Like, I read a report recently that the backstage atmosphere in the locker room, everybody's like freaking kids again, knowing that Sting's going to be working with them in some capacity. It's so cool to see a legend that well received, and maybe the business as far as the actual workers aren't as political as I originally thought. Maybe they are allowed to be kids every once in a while again and be like, oh my God, dude, your Sting's coming to work with us. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And, that to me is great. So however they use Sting, I hope it's better than this. Because, yeah, that was the final point I wanted to make, and I think that's what really you were getting at. This was just so lazy by WWE. You get a name like Sting, and you debut him for a freaking video game.
See, dude, but that's the thing. To me, lazy would have been saying, Sting has signed with the WWE. I wonder what he's going to do. To me, this is like they're intentionally going out of their way to make him less impactful. Like they're assuming that people don't know who he is, so they want to introduce him in a way that'll have the least impact possible, and so that they can introduce him to people, because hardly anyone knows who this guy is. He's never wrestled for us, so he must be a complete unknown. And even if he hadn't been a complete unknown, he hasn't wrestled anywhere in the world for the last 15 years, because that's when WCW went out of business, right?
And see, that's my problem. And this is what I really actually worried about with Sting signing with WWE ever, is because, A, he wasn't WWE made in the first place. He achieved this level of legacy without WWE. Second of all, add on top of that Vince probably has felt slighted a couple times by Sting, if they have come together at the table, as many times as has been reported throughout history, and Sting consistently turning him down to, either stay with TNA or do other things. And then he finally comes around. Well, Vince is going to get what he would deem to be a proper comeuppance, be like, well, you finally want to come around to my side of things. I'll show you how things are done.
We both have such great Vince impressions.
Exactly. And just and just try and make a mockery of this man. I don't want to attribute it to that, but when I see things like this, Ashton, I'm sorry, if I'm being honest with you and all of our listeners, I can't help but attribute it to Vince's petty jealousy that a guy has finally decided to come around. But because he didn't kiss his feet initially at the very first meeting, he's going to make life hell for him. I hope I'm wrong, but just think Vince is just that kind of guy. I don't know.
Yep. I mean, hey, you brought up the invasion angle. I mean, that was all just Vince's ego.
I mean, look how long it took for Booker T, who Sting said, that was the reason he didn't sign, was he saw how, Rock would verbally mow down Booker T and this and stuff, and the stuff they'd have Booker T do. Look how long it took him to get a legitimate World Heavyweight Championship match as Booker T, not as some gimmick, at WrestleMania 19 against Triple H, and look at how that whole storyline even played out. So, I can't really blame Sting for his reservations. I just hope it works out for him, because we have a coup here, we have a big talent here, especially in terms of legacy and all that other stuff, and if WWE really cares, they can make a masterpiece out of whatever he's involved in.
Yep.
So, let's get in the game, guys.
Absolutely. All right, dude. I'm done. Go home.
All right, guys. With that said, this has been SmackDown. This has been TwitWow, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. day. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, comment and subscribe on YouTube, discuss on Tweetoff, and check in with us tomorrow night on Ashton's YouTube channel, Eon Izzle, for our preview and predictions for Battleground 2014. And then, Sunday night, be sure to tune in with us for our Battleground 2014 live reactions. And then we begin the week over again with Monday Night Raw Twitwow, Battleground Fallout. Oh, it's going to be one hell of a time. We hope you join us. See you guys.